Good afternoon, YouTube. Welcome back to the Built on Boxes YouTube channel. My name is James White. I am the trucking lawyer and have a little bit of a surprising video for you guys today. I've recently run into a set of circumstances that was a little bit unexpected, a little bit unforeseeable. Not unforeseeable, but a little bit unforeseen by me. I'm usually pretty good at sort of predicting, forecasting what might happen and preparing for it, but this one kind of caught me off guard. And I'm going to do a more detailed video about that circumstance and tie it into a concept about hiring and anchor it to some other ideas in trucking. But for now, I'd like to just sort of say that it's caused me to rethink my approach to the business in general, whether it's basically rethink the non-CDL part of this. I catch a little flack from time to time because I have made statements in the past, and I do believe this to be true, that CDL semi-truck driving presents a better business opportunity than the box truck game. And I have a bunch of different reasons why I feel that way, and I've laid them out in a previous video. But because of some things that happened in the recent past, it's caused me to sort of recalibrate where I am on that. And so when I take a position on this channel, it's always based on what my exposure to the business has been, what I think has been a good or bad move on my part for my business. And also I try to keep in mind the things that might be affecting other people that might be getting into business. And so I feel like a lot of what I try to do when I say things like that maybe semis are better than box trucks in certain ways, or there's more money to be made, what I'm trying to do is really deter people who don't know which direction to go. I'm trying to help people find a way that don't really know what they want to do. Like, you know, I feel like a lot of times people are getting into the box truck business for the wrong reasons, or transportation in general for the wrong reasons. But as I said before, some recent changes have caused me to sort of envision a circumstance where I might actually go back to box trucks. And because of that, I thought, you know, maybe there are some circumstances where box trucks are a better opportunity for certain people. And so these are the 5 reasons why the box truck business might be better than semis for you. Reason number 1, it may be your only option. Maybe you don't have a CDL. Maybe you don't have the ability to get a CDL. Maybe you're the type of person who is afraid to drive a big vehicle. Maybe you have a full-time 9-to-5 job, can't take time out of your day to go to CDL school. Maybe they don't offer a flexible enough program. Maybe you don't have the ability to take a job and go get a CDL. Maybe you have no interest whatsoever in actually driving the vehicle yourself, but you don't know anybody that has a CDL, and you don't know how to go about hiring somebody that has a CDL. If that applies to you, it's possible that non-CDL hotshot or box truck business might be the only way that you can actually gain entry into transportation. And so it's a good place to start. It's a good way to get familiar with the industry. You can learn a lot about how big freight works by learning how small freight works. And you can learn a lot about truckload by learning about less than truckload. Maybe you had enough money to buy a box truck outright. Maybe you were able to generate funds that would put you in the space where you could compete in the box truck world, but you couldn't do that with a semi. And so it's entirely possible that somebody like me on the YouTube channel has been saying to you, well, if all you can afford to do is box trucks, then don't do anything. And that's not what I was trying to say. And that's not what I would tell anybody. I would never tell somebody, don't get into transportation if all you can do is a box truck. And I feel like at some point, and I'm getting some feedback from my audience, good and bad, some of my audience has been very kind in the way that they've made their remarks to try to help me understand that, look, you know, CDL is not for everybody. If that applies to you and that's the only way you get into the business, then it's a great opportunity for you. Number 2, non-CDL is a great stepping stone to something else. So I forget sometimes that I actually started my company as a box truck company. I got my first insurance quote because of box trucks. I got into this business. I learned all the hours of service requirements. I learned the ELD requirements. I learned how to set up a business and how to apply for my own motor carrier authority based on the box truck platform. Now, the great thing about that is that once you've learned how to make a box truck work, making a CDL truck work is not hard at all. Finding freight for a CDL truck is not hard at all once you've learned how to do it for a box truck. And so it really does provide a step or a bridge towards a better understanding. You got guys that go out and get their CDL and they drive for a company and they drive for 5-10 years and they don't know enough about the business side of it to make the transition. And so you got guys out there that are literally making hundreds of thousands of dollars for another company and never able to cash in and convert that into money for themselves because they started as a CDL driver working for somebody else and they never were forced to understand the business side of it. So you can learn a lot and step your way towards a complete understanding of the freight business, starting with non-CDL and moving towards CDL. Reason number 3 is that it's much less expensive. You can get a decent box truck for somewhere between $25,000 and $35,000 if you're really choosy. Now the market is a little saturated because, you know, look, the word's out. A lot of people think they can come out and make hundreds of thousands of dollars, and there is some misleading information out there. They're not great at telling you how hard it actually is, and there's a lot of issues that I have with the box truck game as it's presented, but it's mostly about packaging. It's not about what the opportunity is. It's mostly about what I consider to be the dishonesty that's presented in the way that the information is being put out. So it's for a normal, you know, MVR for a person that's over 30, no accidents, no tickets, you know, you're probably only going to have about $1,000 a month for insurance. Whereas a semi is going to be $2,500 a month probably for a new authority, even if you don't have a young driver. And you know, your down payment on insurance is like $2,300 for a box truck is where it was with me, $1,000 a month. So the box truck itself, you can lease one for around $500 a week or $2,000 a month. You get about probably 30% better fuel economy out of a box truck than you do a semi. So there are some things there that sort of lend themselves towards the idea that owning a box truck or running a box truck is such a lower cost threshold that if you can get to a certain level, like let's say $5,000 a week, if you can get to a place where you're making between $4,500 and $5,000 a week, it almost makes as much sense to do a box truck as it does a semi. And the reason I say that is because there are people out there that have perfected this box truck game so much that it wouldn't even make sense for them to go to the semi, because their in net isn't enough more for a semi to justify changing everything. The 4th reason is that driving a box truck is a safer and less risky proposition than driving a semi. And I mean, it's still expensive, it's still unsafe, it's still risky because you're still hauling 26,000 pounds down the road, and a lot of times you're doing it with drivers that don't have professional training. But the bottom line is it's proven that it's less risky because it costs half as much to insure. So insurance companies wouldn't charge you half as much if the risk was just the same. So the fact is that 26,000 pounds going down the highway is less dangerous than 80,000 pounds going down the highway, and there's less things to worry about there than a combination vehicle. You don't have to worry about a 53-foot trailer and all the axles and tires, and you don't have to worry about all the things that you have to worry about. It's half as long, essentially. So from a safety perspective and a risk perspective, it's actually less risky than driving a big truck. You know, you still have to be mindful. You still have to, you know, observe the hours of service and the regulatory stuff, but the bottom line is that it's less likely that you're going to have a major incident in a smaller, lighter vehicle than a heavier vehicle with more complicated things that you have to keep track of. And the 5th, and maybe the most important reason, and again, I'm not going to go into detail in this video because I'm going to put out a video that sort of explains the situation in its entirety, but anyone can drive a box truck. So there's not a situation where you can be in the owner's seat and then all of a sudden somebody quits your company or somebody leaves, and now you've got this threshold that you have to meet. You have to be able to find a driver that possesses a particular certification. And if you don't possess that particular certification and you can't find a driver in a short period of time, when you have weekly expenses piling up and your truck is just sitting, you can go out of business. And so with non-CDL and box trucks, even if you have no interest in driving, even if you have no interest in being an owner-operator and all you ever wanted to do was be an owner and develop a fleet, worst comes to worst, you can climb your rear end in that truck as opposed to closing your company, and you can make that run. and you can make sure that at a minimum you can cover your expenses. And that, I've learned recently, is completely invaluable. There's no way to put an actual value on what it means to have the control to climb behind the wheel and go do that work yourself and not have to depend on anybody else. And when you're in the process of replacing a driver that leaves your company expectedly or unexpectedly, the truth is that it's easier to find somebody to drive a box truck because anybody can drive one, or non-CDL rig because anyone can drive one, as long as they have a clean MVR and as long as they are over the age that you need in order for it to make financial sense for your insurance. You can stick anybody behind the wheel of a box truck and they can pass a DOT physical, and you can fill that space until you can find your way to being able to fill it with the person that you're looking for. The fact of the matter is, all of these things combined could mean a recipe for why box trucks make more sense for you than a semi would. I still think everybody is working towards being an owner of a semi fleet, but maybe not. Maybe you find your niche here. Maybe you sit down, maybe you become great at this, maybe you build a fleet of 10 trucks. I mean, I've seen guys on the internet talking about how they're 23, 24 years old and have a fleet of 6 or 7 trucks they've built in 6 months. I mean, that's unbelievable. That's incredible. And if they're in an area where freight is good enough to do that, then that's awesome. And none of that stuff requires anything special except the special skill of managing and communicating with people, and then making sure that you can hire appropriate people to fill the roles. So anyway, part of this is a learning experience for me too. I mean, I'm going through this, learning how to run a company, learning how to make sure that I'm in compliance with the things that you need to do, all that stuff. And I don't always see it, even if it's right in front of my face, until it happens to me. And in this particular case, I found myself in a situation where I had a truck that I couldn't drive. I had nobody drive it, and all of a sudden it's costing me money on a weekly basis, and I'm not able to move fast enough to make this work and get myself qualified. So I'm gonna tell that story in an upcoming video, but suffice it to say for now, everything's good. Your boy's on track to get his CDL. Company's still going, we're fine, but it caused me to think about things in a way that I hadn't thought about it. And so if there's anybody out there that I've offended by saying, oh, you needed to do semi instead of box truck, I apologize. I'm not trying to take a shot at anybody. I'm just trying to provide the best sort of outlook that I can based on the things that I know. And when that stuff changes, I'm not too big of a person to jump in here and give you a corrected roadmap of what I think the landscape looks like. So with that being said, appreciate you guys. Please continue to like and subscribe. Appreciate your support. We'll be back at you with some more updates, and I hope you guys have a great day.